What's going on, guys? Zuko back with another Dragonflight video. How y'all doing? We're going to talk about all the priest changes that are happening in 10.0.5, which is happening tomorrow. If you're watching this on the Monday, it's going to happen on Tuesday at reset. So there's some really great changes happening to all three specs of priest, and I want to do a jump into each one of them and talk about kind of what's been going on. So I'm not going to do a big deep dive on the shadow one because I've done a video on that. So all the psychic link damage that's coming through, I'll touch on it a little bit in this video, but I'm not going to do a deep dive because I want to hit all three specs, and I don't want to, take up the entire day doing that. So let's start with Disc Priest, and we're going to talk about the changes that are coming to the talent tree in 10.0.5, and there are some massive changes for Disc Priest coming in 10.05. So let me just talk about generally what talents are changing and then what the emphasis is going to be. For starters, there's a pain suppression talent right underneath pain suppression that gives it an additional charge now. So this used to just say, Protect of the Frail used to just say power word shield, reduces the cooldown of pain suppression by 3 seconds. Now it gets an additional charge on top of that. So you can see I've got 2 pain subs right here. Really, really incredible change. It sounds like it's not like that big of a deal, but it actually is because Pain Sup buys you so much time. You can just start a dungeon and Pain Sup the tank, and then you can get into your DPS rotation. You can get into some ramp. You could do it in the middle of a really nasty fight, like the tree boss. For example, let's say you're looking at the tree boss in Algathar Academy. You can Pain Suppression the tank right before, like, 5 or 6 seconds before he does that burst forth ability, and then you can pop, Rapture and just start shielding everybody. And then you're cooling down pain suppression because that's what this does. Power word shield cools down pain suppression. And your tank is safe because he's got 40% DR. And you're going to make everybody else safe. So there's some really good combos now with the pain suppression charge. Huge talent here. Protector of the Frail. I think this is going to be like a mandatory talent now for Mythic Plus in particular. But also it could be, just as good in Raid. The big changes that have happened for Disc Priest is on the shadow side of things. So the shadow stuff hasn't really been used very much at all. We've mostly been using like Wheel and Woe and Harsh Discipline and a little bit of the Light's Wrath stuff, but mostly it's like you want Divine Aegis plus like Wheel and Woe. Those are kind of the big combos you've been doing, and it's been a power word shield focused meta, which is fine. That's been very strong. But now they've really buffed the shadow stuff, and number one is going to be this Dark Indulgence. This used to buff Penance, but now it says Mind Blast gets an additional charge, and its mana cost is reduced by 40%. So Mind Blast costs 2,400 mana. It's like nothing. Like Smite is 1,000. This is only 2,400 now. Like my Penance is 4,000. There's 4,500 for Purge the Wicked. Radiance is 13,000. So this is a really cheap spell now, and that's good because having a second charge on Mind Blast means we get to use it on Inescapable Torment. I'll get to that in a minute. But this is a very big talent actually right here, getting another charge of Mind Blast. Another buff we've seen is that Shadow Covenant is now going to incorporate a talent that used to be on the row beneath it, which turned Penance into Dark Reprimand. So it used to be called Twilight Corruption. That was the talent. So now essentially they just baked Twilight Corruption into Shadow Covenant. So you don't have to take that anymore. So you're saving a talent point there on the Shadow stuff, which is really good. So it says here, he makes a Shadowy Pact, healing 5 people for 14,000. Increasing your shadow spell damage and healing. Halo and Divine Star and Penance are converted into shadow spells. So Penance becomes Dark Reprimand, which is really cool. You can see right here, if I press Shadow Covenant, right there, I've got Dark Reprimand. So this is good because it basically just means you're doing 25% more Penance damage and healing, which is crazy. So if you get Atonements out first, get a bunch of Atonements out, and then you pop Shadow Covenant, you could go into a big Penance. And if you've stacked up your Harsh Discipline proc, right, then your Penance is going to fire 7 bolts instead of 4, which means you're going to get way more Dark Reprimand damage and healing. So your combo would look like this. Smite, throw in Purge the Wicked, Smite, and then you would go, okay, we're good. We have our proc is ready to go, so we're going to put out Atonements, we're going to pop Shadow Covenant, and then you're going to go Dark Reprimand, and it's going to do 7 Shadow Bolts, and it's going to heal for so much. Obviously, you can do Schism and other things, but I'm just showing you that initial combo right there. Not only does it do tons of damage now, it does a lot of extra damage, it's also just going to heal for a lot more through Atonement. So Really cool combo right there. That's an awesome new addition there. Shadow Covenant's just baking that in. Embrace the Shadow got buffed. It got doubled. It used to increase Shadow Covenant's duration by 4 seconds. Now it increases it by 8 seconds. So it's very good now. So now a Shadow Covenant lasts 15 seconds. So when you pop Shadow Covenant, you have 15 seconds of increased shadow damage and increased healing. And you might ask, what are your shadow spells? Well, again, when you pop Shadow Covenant, Divine Star becomes a shadow spell. Mind Blast is already a shadow spell. Mind Games is a shadow spell. Penance now becomes a shadow spell. Schism is a shadow spell. Like, your Mindbender damage is shadow from Inescapable Torment. There's a lot of shadow damage that you're dealing. Now you're doing 25% more, and you're healing through it. So it's really strong. Really, really strong now. Finally, you're going to come down and get Mindbender itself, and you're going to pick up Inescapable Torment, and then Void Summoner gets an additional proc off of Power Word Solace now. So this used to just proc off of Smite, Mind Blast, and Penance. Now it will also proc off of Power Word Solace. So it's just really good because you're going to want to cast Power Word Solace on cooldown, and now it has an additional efficiency that it's cooling down your Mindbender. So your Mindbender, instead of being a 1-minute cooldown, is realistically a 20 to 30 second cooldown now, and you're extending it with Inescapable Torment. You can extend it. It's going to go up by a second every single time you use Mind Blast and Shadow or Death. So you can guarantee to get at least 3 seconds of extension on Mindbender. Realistically, if you're paying attention, you can get 4 seconds because Mind Blast will be back in time. So you can get 4-second increase on Mindbender's duration, which is really good. Instead of 12 seconds, it's a 16-second duration. It's going to be doing 25% more shadow damage and healing. It's going to heal everybody through Atonement, by the way. Your Inescapable Torment procs will heal everybody through Atonement as long as you're keeping your Atonements up. So this new combo of like Power Word Radiance, like you shield the tank and then Power Word Radiance into a Shadow Covenant Mindbender window. This is what's going to be happening now with Disc Priest. On top of that, one final thing I want to say is that Vampiric Embrace will now heal everybody off of shadow damage that you deal. So this is a new cooldown that you can add in to your rotation as an additional healing spell for everybody. So, as if Disc didn't have enough cooldowns already, but it's really nice. And it's off the global cooldown as well now. So really, really cool. So here's what your rotation might look like. You want to farm a Penance proc with Smite early on in the fight, okay? You want to get your Purge the Wickeds out. So we're getting those out. Okay, we got 3 of those out. Now we have our Penance proc, okay? Now we're going to go Shadow Covenant. We're going to get our Atonements out first. So Atonement. Let me see. Atonement. Then we're going to go Shadow Covenant into Schism. We're going to do Dark Reprimand, but we're going to go Mindbender here. And then we're going to proc Mindbender with our Mind Blast. I'm going to make sure I actually have some Atonements out. I just want to show you that it actually procs. Okay, we go boom. Did it even go? What happened there? Let's get some stuff going over here. Let me show you this again. I don't know why that didn't. I feel like it didn't work to me. Watch the cooldown reduction on Mindbender here. Smite, Solace. If I want a Penance, it'll also cool it down. There we go. So you can keep casting all your regular spells and it'll cool everything down. Okay. We've got our Mindbender back. Let's go Power. Okay, let me try this again. I think that was kind of bugging out. I'm not really sure what's going on. But the basic combo that you want to do is, farm your Penance proc, and then you want to do Radiance into Shadow Covenant. Okay, so we're going to go Radiance, Shadow Covenant, Mindbender. Okay. And then we're going to proc the Mindbender with Mind Blast. You can see everybody's getting healed. Everybody's getting healed from our procs on the Mindbender, which is really cool. And then a big heal from Penance here. One more heal for Mindbender. He's still up. You can see all the procs there. Really, really cool. So you just have to make sure that your Atonements are out. And every time the Mindbender does his Inescapable Torment slash, not only will the Mind Blast damage heal everybody, and the Shadow Red Death damage is going to heal everybody, but the Inescapable Torment damage is going to heal everybody as well. So you're kind of double, triple dipping there. It's really, really cool. So those are the main changes coming for Disc Priest. It's very exciting. I think the Shadow build is going to be really serious. It's going to be amazing. I think you can do a ton of extra damage with it. Double pain suppression is insane. Like, that is just way too strong. So Disc is looking really, really good. Let me shift over to Holy here. Okay, we're back over to Holy Priest here. And not a lot has changed on the talent tree except for the offensive abilities. Let's talk really quickly about that. Basically, what's changed now is they've made Imperial Blaze, they've moved it slightly a little bit, so it's up here. And they've taken Burning Vehemence, which used to be at the top of the tree, and they moved it down here. So, and they've changed what it does. So Burning Vehemence now says Holy Fire damage plus 30%. On top of that, Holy Fire deals 30% of its initial damage to all nearby enemies within 12 yards of your target. Damage reduced beyond 5 targets. This is crazy. So now every Holy Fire that you drop is going to splash the initial damage done. And the bulk of the Holy Fire damage is the initial damage. It does almost 22,000 damage up front and then another 10k over 7 seconds. So you can do now your Holy Fire into Imperial Blaze, Holy Fire, Holy Fire, Holy Fire. All of those are going to splash, okay? Actually insane damage. On top of that, Searing Light is now up here, and it's a 1-point talent instead of a 2-point talent. Smite and Holy Nova deal 25% additional damage to targets affected by your Holy Fire. So you can do the Holy Fire combo with Imperial Blaze and then run in and do a big Holy Nova, and it will do a lot of extra damage for you. As you can, my Holy Nova is stacking up here. So the one thing I want to mention is that Divine Word used with Chastise causes your smites to have a chance to apply Holy Fire. If your smites, while you have if you go Divine Word into Chastise and you're smiting and it's adding Holy Fires to the enemy, that will not splash AoE damage with Burning Vehemence. Those procs off of smite do not splash, unfortunately. But oh, there's a sub there. But the window is still really, really big. Let me show you the offensive window. What I think is really cool about this is that Holy Priest can essentially dump all of their damage in like an 8 to 10 second window. And then you can go back to healing, which is really cool. You can get all your damage out really quickly. So here's what we would do. We're going to go Power Infusion into Mind Games. Mind Games. I'm not even taking this, so it doesn't matter. But we'll start with Mind Games. So we'll go Mind Games into Power Infusion. Then we go Holy Fire into Vehemence. Holy Fire, Holy Fire, Holy Fire. And then you would just do the rest of your rotation. Now, I didn't use the Divine Word there, but I just wanted to show you the Holy Fire damage. Like, that's it. My window is over. But every Holy Fire is going to splash. Every single Holy Fire. Look at the Burning Vehemence damage. It does almost as much damage as Holy Fire itself. It might do 15% less damage. That's insane how much it ends up doing because of all the targets that we're hitting. Now, if I had more than 5 targets, it would still hit them. It would just do less damage overall. Your entire big burst window could include Divine Word if you want to, but realistically, guys, you only really need to do an Imperial Blaze window every 1 minute. You're going to be getting massive Holy Fire damage. I mean, in the interim, just regularly now, you're going to have Holy Fire up, and you're going to want to press it in every AoE situation because it does tons of damage. So here's the Holy Fire combo with a Holy Nova at the end. Watch the damage here. So we're going to go... Again, we're not going to use the Divine Word stuff because we don't need to. It's okay. You're realistically going to want to use Divine Word defensively for healing. So we'll go Holy Fire into Vehemence, into Holy Fire, Holy Fire, Holy Fire. Now it's tagging everybody. Now we run in for the Nova. Look at that damage. Look at the damage Holy Nova did. 62k Holy Nova. Really, really crazy. So this is going to be the AoE burst rotation now for Holy Priest. Nothing else has really changed on the talent tree, just the offensive stuff. So there is a case to be made for taking Divine Word and using it on Chastise. It increases all your damage by 30%. So just remember that. Even if you don't want to be doing the whole smite thing, you could just do Divine Word plus Chastise to get 30% more damage. And I'll show you really quickly what that's like. And then I'll move on to Shadow Priest. So this will increase that. And again, Smite does add Holy Fire, and Holy Fire does a lot of damage. So if you have a window of about 10 seconds or so to pull this off, where your allies aren't going to be dying, then by all means, definitely do it. If you don't think you're going to need the Divine Word for healing, go for it. So here's what we're going to do. Mind Games into PI, into Divine Word, into Chastise. Then we go Holy Fire into Imperial Blaze. Holy Fire, Holy Fire, Holy Fire. Then we Smite. Smite, 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 Smite. I'm going to put a Holy Nova in there to cash in on damage. Smite, Smite, Smite. You can see I have 3 seconds on Chastise left. It's adding Holy Fires. I got a couple there. I got 2 of them there. Add a 3rd Holy Fire. There we go. There's the burst window. So ends up doing lots of Holy Fire damage, lots of Smite damage. Holy Nova did some there. And yeah, it might be worth it to use your Divine Word that way if you have time to make it work. So just remember that. You have to pick and choose, and you have to gauge whether or not this is going to be worth it. But that's the only real change for Holy Priest that's coming in 10.05. It's a big DPS bonus in Mythic Plus primarily. Okay, let's shift over to Shadow Priest. All right, we've jumped into Shadow Priest here. I just want to say really quickly, I've looked at the builds that I'm thinking of taking into Mythic Plus in 10.05, and I'm going to be doing basically a Void Torrent build with Idol of N'Zoth. I think that's the best way to build it so far. If you want to do a full-blown Void Torrent build, because it scales with Psychic Link damage now, right? So if you don't know, your Mind Games, Void Bolt, and Void Torrent are now added into the Psychic Link pool. So Mind Games is really good, and Void Torrent is really good. Now, people this past week have been talking about a no Mind Seer build, and I just don't see it. And I'm going to explain why. It basically involves taking Mind Flay Insanity sometimes, and then taking Insidious Ire, like 1 point into Insidious Ire. I've seen a build that looks something like this. So you don't have any Mind Seer. The reason that this isn't good, let me tell you why this isn't good. The main reason is because of Mental Decay. That's this talent right here. The duration of your dots get extended whenever enemies suffer from Mind Flay or Mind Seer. The problem is that Shadow Crash will apply your dots. Shadow Crash is a 30-second cooldown. Your dots only last for... let me just look here. They only last for 21 seconds. Both of them, actually. Shadow Word Pain and Vampiric Touch both last for 21 seconds. So that's 9 seconds where you're going to not have dots up. And that's not okay. It's really not okay. Everything revolves around your dots. You need to have your dots up. They generate resources for you. They're helping to produce shadowy apparitions for you if you have like maybe tormented spirits or whatever. The point is, they're your main source of like resource generation, and they're going to do lots of damage. And if you have to individually apply Vampiric Touches because they're falling off, you're going to lose tremendous amounts of damage. So this is a build that people have tried to sort of look at, and you know, the opening would look very similar to other builds. You do like Dark Ascension into Shadow Crash into a Mind Bender, and then you go, go, go. Here we go. We're doing lots of damage. Now I'm going to do this. Now I'm going to use a... I have to use a Devouring Plague because we're running out of... Then we do this, but I don't have any room to fit in my Void Torrent, basically, which is not good. And I'm going to fit it in now. And my dots are about to fall off. You can see that. The dots on my main character are not falling off, which is cool. But there's so many other procs going on. There's like Mind Spike procs, and there's Mind Flay Insanity procs that I have to respect. Now my dots have fallen off. I got to refresh them with Shadow Crash, and that seems okay. But again, you're losing so much damage while those dots are falling off. So I just don't think that this build is actually worth it at all. I think you're just losing way too much damage by your dots falling off. And also having to sub in Mind Flay Insanity, I just don't think it's as good as having Mind Seer. Let me show you my build really quick that I would run that's going to use Mind Flay, Mind Seer, and a couple of other things. So the reason also is that they take Insidious Ire, which I think is just a bad take, because you have to have Shadow Word Pain, Devouring Plague, and Vampiric Touch on the enemy in order for Mind Blast to do more damage. You saw there, as soon as you cast Devouring Plague, you only have 10 seconds to cash in on your Mind Flay Insanity. So you don't have time, like you have time to press a couple of Mind Blasts, but it's just like, that's the only time when you can do it. As soon as you drop Devouring Plague, it's only on the enemy for 6 seconds. So you have 6 seconds to cash in on the Insidious Ire damage. And it's generally speaking, like, hard to do that. And I just don't think that it works that well. There's too many, like, it makes the rotation too frustrating and too complicated. And it just means that you're like, as soon as you press your Devouring Plague, you're like, okay, I got a Mind Blast a couple times. What if I'm at full Insanity? What if I got a proc on Mind Devourer and my Devouring Plague is free? And so it's like, now I'm going to be overcapping Insanity, like a lot of overcapping, and you have to be really careful about that. I just don't think the build works very well. Here's the build that I'm thinking of taking into Mythic Plus on Tuesday with my Shadow Priest. So it's going to be an Idol of N'Zoth build with Void Torrent and only 1 point in Mind Devourer. So watch this. Here we go. Same opener, Dark Ascension, into Shadow Crash, into Mind Bender, and we're going to go. We're going to overcap Rage here for a second. Don't worry about it. We're going to do a Mind Seer. Okay, and then we're going to do that and this, and then we're going to get into our Void Torrent. Void Torrent splashing damage again, remember? And then we have max Insanity, so we're going to pop that. A couple more Mind Blasts to get our Mind Bender to proc, and now we're out of Mind Bender. We got a free proc on our Mind Seer. There we go. All of our dots are being extended. All of our dots are being extended. Look at that. We got all the way back to Shadow Crash. Now we never lose our dots. It's so much better. Oh, we're going to overcap Insanity here. That's unfortunate, but that's okay. We're just waiting for Void Torrent to come back. We're going to press Void Torrent right now. Look at that. 30-second Void Torrent. So much extra damage, and it generates so much Insanity for us. that it basically acts as another point in Mind Devour. We're going to use Mind Games because it cleaves now as well. We're almost back into our window, our Dark Ascension window, so I'm going to dump all my Insanity in anticipation for that. Dark Ascension into Shadow Crash, into Mindbender. Here we go. We're back into our Mindbender. He's clapping cheeks. Then we're going to do Mind Seer because we're almost capped. And look at that, right on time. Void Torrent's back. Let's do Void Torrent right now. It's splashing damage as well. I really like this build. It feels so much smoother to me than these other builds that are trying to incorporate like Insidious Ire and a bunch of other stuff like that. It just feels smoother to me. I don't know how else to say that. It feels really good. So that's the build. And you see we were doing way more damage. Like in the other build we were dipping below 100k. This one can like sustain 140k on 5 targets. So this is what your build is gonna, this is what your damage is gonna look like. Echoing Void. That's not right. What's going on there? Echoing Void should be way higher. I don't know where it is. Anyway, I'm not going to spend too much time looking at it, but it says it's only 2.7%, but it should be higher than that. It must not have been procking. It just must not have procced very much. We got unlucky there, but the point is this build will actually do more damage for you. Psychic Link is going to be huge now. It's going to be probably your #1 damage source because of all the buffs that have been given to it, right? So because you have Mind Blast, Mind Flame, Mind Spike, Mind Games, and Void Torrent. Those are the 2 ones that we're getting. Mind Games and Void Torrent now. Huge damage there. I really like this build because the actual Idol of N'Zoth damage is much higher than it showed right there. I promise you, it's much higher in a dungeon. I've already tested this and it works out better. Void Torrent does tons of damage on single target. 70k shadow damage is amazing. And so it's going to help you on bosses in Mythic Plus. And now that it splashes damage with Psychic Link, it's your highest AoE contributor now when you send it out. And every 30 seconds is kind of the perfect amount of time. Occasionally, you're going to have the Void Torrent go off. Every other Void Torrent will go off in a Dark Ascension window, which means the Psychic Link damage will be 25% higher. So that's why your Psychic Link damage is so high. It's going to be really high. And Mind Seer, I think, is still a really important component of AoE damage. I don't think you can do a build that doesn't include Mind Seer. That's the bottom line. So, yeah, that's what I think, guys. Those are the Priest updates that are heading into the game in 10.0.5 literally tomorrow. On Tuesday, reset Wednesday for you European guys. So get ready for that. If you want to play Holy Priest, you're going to be doing way more damage in dungeons now. If you want to play Discipline Priest, I think there's a brand new Shadow build that is amazing. And if you're going to play Shadow Priest, there are tons of new build ideas here because of all the Psychic Link stuff that's going on. So let me know what you guys think in the comments down below about all the Priest changes that are coming through. Are you excited about them? I'd love to hear from you down there in the comments, okay? Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you all. I'll see you next time.